Hey friends, Chapter 4, The Green Christmas. Henry was glad he sat in the row by the windows in room 4, his classroom, because he could watch for snowflakes. Even though his dad said they'd probably have a green Christmas this year, Henry still hoped for snow and a white Christmas. He was pretty sure the package hidden behind some of the boxes in the garage was the sled he wanted, a real flexible flyer. While he sat at his desk looking out at the clouds for signs of snow, he was listening to Miss Roop talk about the Christmas play and thinking he had taken a part in enough school plays for 1 year. In September, he had been the second Native American in a play for the Westward Expansion Unit. That hadn't been too bad. He wrapped up in a blanket and put some feathers in his hair, and he didn't really have any words to say. Then in November, Robert came down with mumps just before book week. At the last minute, Henry had to wear a long cotton beard and read Robert's part, one of the 7 dwarves, in a play called Storyland Favorites Come to Light. It wasn't a play that Henry liked, but at least he didn't have to memorize any lines or do much practicing because there wasn't time. During the performance, though, he had to stop reading several times in order to take pieces of his beard out of his mouth. But his worst part had been in the parent-teacher program for National Brush Your Teeth Week. Henry had been really disgusted that day. He had to wear his fanciest pants and a white shirt, and he had to stay clean all day. Then he missed practicing with his football because the meeting was after school. Worst of all, he had to stand up in front of all the moms and dads and the teachers and bow and say, "I am Sir Cuspit, my job is to bite. Brush me twice daily to keep me so white." The kids called him Sir Cuspidor for a long time after that. Now Miss Roop was telling the class the Christmas play this year was called A Visit to Santa Claus. It was about a mom and dad and their 2 kids who visited Santa Claus at the North Pole on Christmas Eve. Henry thought it was a pretty silly play. In the end, it turned out the little boy had dreamed the whole thing, and Henry really disliked stories that ended by being someone's dream. Miss Roop said, "Since the whole school is giving the play, there won't be parts for everyone in the classroom." That's good, thought Henry. He slid way down in his seat so Miss Roop wouldn't notice him when she assigned the parts. Miss Roop continued, "Richard, Arthur, Ralph, and David will be 4 of Santa Claus's reindeer. The other 4 will be chosen from room 5. So far, Henry was safe. He stayed down in his seat just to be sure. "Mary Jane, you are to have the part of the dancing doll. Beatrice, you will be the rag doll." Girl parts. Henry felt a little safer. "Robert, you'll be the big brown dog," Miss Roop went on, and everybody laughed. "Ruff, ruff, ruff," said Robert, and the class laughed again. When Miss Roop started to hand out the parts, Henry decided she was finished with her list, so he sat up straight in his seat and looked out the window at the sky. It seemed a little darker. There might be some snow before Christmas after all. He was glad he wouldn't have to stay in after school to rehearse A Visit to Santa Claus. He wanted to make snowmen and throw snowballs, since of course his mom and dad wouldn't give him his sled until Christmas. When he got the sled, he wanted to go sliding on the 33rd Street hill. Miss Roop, holding one part in her hand, stood in front of the class again and smiled in Henry's direction. Just in case she was smiling at him, Henry quickly slid down in his seat again. Uh-oh. She was smiling at him. She said, "And the best part of all goes to Henry Huggins. Henry, you're the shortest boy in room 4, so you're going to play Timmy, the little boy who dreams the whole story." The whole class shouted with laughter. A little boy? It was worse than anything Henry could have imagined. He'd never lived down the part of a little boy. Sir Cuspid the Tooth had been bad enough, but a little boy, oh, the kids would never stop teasing him. Miss Roop? Henry said desperately. There's lots of littler kids in the lower grades. Couldn't one of them play the part of a little boy? No, Henry. All the second and third grade boys are needed for the chorus of polar bears. And the first grade boys are too little to learn all the lines, and the kindergartners couldn't take it seriously. She handed Henry his part. Oh, Henry quickly read. Act 1. The scene is Timmy's bedroom. Timmy is wearing pajamas. Enter Timmy's mother. She says, Hurry up and get into bed, Timmy. It's Christmas Eve, and good little boy should be asleep when Santa Claus comes. Timmy, or Henry, is supposed to say, Yes, mother, and get into bed. His mom tucks him in and kisses him good night. She says, Good night, Timmy. Pleasant dreams. She leaves and shuts the door. And Timmy thinks, Ho hum, my am I sleepy. I wonder what Santa Claus will have for me in his pack. I think I will try to stay awake. And immediately falls asleep. Oh, Henry groaned. This was worse than he had expected. Pajamas? A goodnight kiss? Did they think he was going to stand up there on the stage in front of the whole school, even the girls, in his pajamas? And to get kissed by some silly old 8th grade girl who was supposed to be his mom? Oh my goodness, this was too horrible to even think about. He had to find a way to get out of this. Already Robert was whispering across the aisle, Hey, little boy, little boy. Henry ignored him. Maybe if he did some stretching exercises for an hour every morning before school, he'd grow fast enough to outgrow the part. No, that wouldn't work. There wasn't enough time for that. He'd have to think of something else. During the rest of the afternoon, Henry had trouble focusing on social studies. He was too busy trying to think of a way to get out of playing Timmy the little boy. When the last bell rang, he grabbed his hat and raincoat from the closet. He was the first one out of the classroom and the first one out of the school building. Ribs was waiting under the pine tree, out of the rain. Come on, Ribsy, Henry yelled. Let's keep ahead of the rest of the kids. But he wasn't fast enough. Beezus and Robert and Scooter were just behind him. Hi there, Timmy, they yelled. How's our little boy? And then they began to chant, Henry is a little boy, Henry is a little boy. Henry slowed down. Be quiet, he yelled. You think you're so smart, but you're not. You're just an old rag doll and a brown dog. I'll bet Scooter's something silly, too. Wouldn't catch me being in any old play, said Scooter. I'm on the stage crew. I get to pull the curtain open and closed and turn on the lights and paint the scenery and cool stuff like that. Mary Jane came skipping down the street, jumping across the puddles on the sidewalk. Here comes old Dancing Doll, yelled Henry. Yes, Mary Jane smiled proudly. I'll wear my new ballet slippers and my pink taffeta party dress and get my hair all curled. Oh, the other kids were disappointed. They couldn't tease Mary Jane if she wanted to actually be a dancing doll. Gave Henry an idea. He waited until Scooter said, I'll bet the little boy will look real cute in his PJs. Are you going to wear the footy kind with feet in them, little boy? Aw, you're just jealous because you don't have an important part like me. I've got the most important part in the whole play. Ha! Don't be so funny, Scooter laughed. I wouldn't learn all those lines and run around in front of a bunch of people in my PJs for $1,000,000. It was a good try, but it didn't work. Henry would have to think of something else. Maybe he could pretend to be sick. Nah, that wouldn't do it. His mom would make him go to bed, and if it did happen to snow, then he'd have to stay in the house while all the other kids were out sliding and throwing snowballs and stuff like that. And that's where I'm going to stop right now for today. We'll see you later. Hope you enjoyed.